Imagine if Facebook was your only source of news and you trusted it like a newspaper. Imagine someone posts, "Kill all Muslims in this country and feed them to the dogs." Imagine 600 people like this, 300 share it. It starts to feel like everyone thinks this way, that this kind of speech is normal. Imagine if the country you live in was recently a dictatorship and you're scared to report the person because you're unsure what the consequences of that could be. The country I'm talking about is Myanmar, formerly Burma, in Southeast Asia. And this is just one example of the kind of hate speech that goes unchecked every day on Facebook there. I lived and worked in Myanmar as a journalist during the country's political opening. It felt like almost overnight the country went from complete censorship to an open media. Newspapers struggled to train their journalists and make enough money to keep the printing presses going. But Facebook was instant. People jumped on it to share stories they hadn't been able to speak about in 60 years. Today they use it to contact government ministers. People are searching on it as if it's Google. In fact, it's not uncommon for people in Myanmar to think of Facebook as the internet itself. Now, I'm not saying that racism or intolerance was born on Facebook or that it's limited to that platform, but it became an echo chamber for misinformation and hatred. Speech spread across boundaries in ways it couldn't before, and lives are at stake. 250 people, most of them Muslims, have been killed in religious violence since the country's military loosened its grip 3 years ago. We've seen this kind of thing before. In Rwanda, radio stations use dehumanizing language ahead of the genocide. I often wonder in Myanmar if I'm seeing the beginnings of the world's first genocide spurred on by the virtual world. The good news is, I don't think it's too late. Myanmar is at the very beginning of its information revolution. In the country of around 60 million, only 10% can access mobile internet today. That's going to jump in the next 2 years to 75%. Tens of millions of people coming online for the very first time, which is why it's so important that we act now. I'm working with Facebook's Compassion Research team and a group of organizations in Myanmar to think of culturally appropriate ways to counteract the kind of speech, the most dangerous speech, that is likely to cause violence. But even here in the US, we're just beginning to understand what kind of speech can counteract hate speech online. Not censor it, not ignore the trolls, but be louder than them. And here's why I have hope. Panzagar means flower speech. It's a local Myanmar idea to try and counteract hate speech with flower speech. I think it's a wonderful concept. Yes, people are far more exposed to hate speech in a digital age, but they can also be exposed to peaceful and constructive speech, the kind of speech that builds a nation, one word at a time. Thank you.